See where Catherine is. Well, I see it's 6:30, but wait a couple more minutes to see if Catherine, our guest, can dial in. See where Sherry was just here a second ago. There's Sherry. I was going to say while we wait, we could peruse what's in the chat, but I think Kevin's in the process of putting that in there. There's Sherry.
I'm sorry, I just got a phone call I had to take.
No worries. We're waiting on
Your speaker?
yeah, we're waiting on Catherine to dial in. She texted me earlier. I see a text here. She was having trouble with her computer. So let me see. So I told her she could dial in. In the meantime, oh, fantastic. Thanks, Kevin. He put some things in the chat for us to take a look at while we wait for Catherine to get here. Let me see. I'll send it. She was looking for the link. Let me um, let me send the link to her. Um, um, in the meantime, you want to start and we'll do some general announcements of things that are coming up. I think Catherine's going to dial in. What do you think? Do you want to wait a couple of minutes? It's 6:33. What do you think, Sherry?
Why don't we have Kevin do his spiel?
Okay, sounds good.
Welcome everyone. If this is your first time joining us virtually, you would notice that you are currently muted, and everyone will remain muted throughout the meeting except for Ed and Sherry and any presenters. As we move through the agenda, Ed and Sherry will call on members of the public wishing to speak. You can participate by going to the react icon on your device and pressing the raise hand button, not the wave or thumbs up, as those will disappear. Only press it once. If you press it a second time, your hand will go back down. If you're calling in on the phone, it is *9 to raise hand and *6 to unmute. Be on the lookout for prompts asking you to confirm unmuting once the co-chairs call on you. The chat is available for technical support only to help with Zoom software problems, not to ask questions of the co-chairs. They will not see the chats. If you're using an older version of Zoom, you will need to go to the participants section where you will find the raise hand feature there. Please do not raise your actual hand and wave at the screen because we may not be able to see you. Chat me, I'm here for support. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Welcome everyone to the June 25th Voting Reform and Charter Revision Task Force meeting of Community Board Aid. I am Ed Hartzog, one of the co-chairs. Sherry Weiner, my other co-chair, is here. Thanks everyone for joining us. We are anticipating the arrival of our guest for this month's meeting shortly. In the meantime, very quickly, just wanted to let you know in the chat we have posted an article from Gothamist just recently out today about turnout in the primary yesterday, both in New York but also statewide. Also have links to the recent charter revision reports from the mayor's commission as well as the city council. And I also think Kevin will be posting the amended report from the city council's commission that's up. It's very short. And then we have a resolution regarding open primaries to talk about at some point. Finally, last PSA is there is one more meeting of the New York City Council's Charter Revision Commission tomorrow evening in Brooklyn. And the previous meeting was Monday in Manhattan. They are still taking written testimony from that meeting on Monday up until tomorrow. So if you want to submit written testimony on that one, you can. And Sherry, do you have anything?
No, nope.
Okay. Um, let's see. In the meantime, I don't know if we have the resolution up or not. Kevin, I don't know if we could post it. As part of the mayor's commission, hold on one second. Bear with me for one second. Uh, um, anyway, the mayor's has proposed open primaries for the for our elections to increase voter turnout. Anyway, we have a resolution. I don't know if Kevin has posted it yet. That's in there. Let me send it to him again. Speaking about what has been going on in the fact that we don't have much data with respect to ranked choice voting, and in addition to with respect to how it impacts open primaries at this point. There are also many other areas besides just what I should say are there are many iterations of open primaries. There's a top two open primary system. There's a top four open primary system. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Kevin just posted something from the charter revision, and I see Gail is signed on. Let me see if. Oh, there it is. Thanks, Kevin. And I think maybe our resolution is up there, which would be helpful because we could go through it. There are some points in there. I don't want to just look away and read from it. Anyway, but given that I think Catherine is still signing on, I will just go through the resolution if we could get it posted. I don't know. Okay, well, anyway, as I said, currently we have a closed primary system as we had yesterday for those of you who voted. Um, Obviously the city is about 8-1 Democrat to Republican, heavily one party. People say that, and there's about 1 million unaffiliated voters in the city of New York out of 8 million residents. Um, People say that if you open up the primary system, the unaffiliated voters who don't participate in the primaries will be much more active, and we will have a much higher turnout with respect to people showing up early and picking who the contenders will be in the general election, because you constantly hear that. Anyone who has listened to New York One or has listened to Gerson Barrero, who continues to make a point about this, he is a journalist who is an independent and makes a point of saying that every time the primaries come around, he cannot participate because he is closed out of. Oh, thanks very much. So here's the resolution I was talking about, that he is boxed out of the primaries. And people often say that all the time is, I don't really get to choose. By the time the general election comes around, the real election has already occurred. And, what's the point? And voter turnout in New York City is notoriously low. As the Gothamist article we have posted in the chat talks about today, it was somewhere around 30%. And that is not only here in the city, it is also statewide. I should also note that it is a closed primary system statewide as well. Um, in addition to which, as I was alluding to before, I don't know if we could blow that up a little bit. Um, with respect to the ranked choice voting, which we just implemented, we had our first election 4 years ago, and we just had our second one this time around. Um, no one has really looked at what the part of ranked choice voting was, the idea that it would increase voter turnout. Well, from what we've seen, still at 30%, that's not really doing too much with respect to voter turnout. So, some of the points that people would make with respect to going for open primaries and the idea of it increasing voter turnout is, we're not quite sure what it's going to do. And I know some people have spoken about the fact that when you open up primaries, again, as you'll see in the resolution, there are parts of it that how do you restrict who can vote in an open primary? Um, I'm not sure with respect to New York, given the size of the city, but there's always talk of meddling with respect to primaries with unaffiliated voters or people affiliated with a political party being able to cross over and vote in another party's primary, hoping to skew the results to achieve a candidate that they might prefer running against in the general election. Again, I don't have the data in front of me with respect to that, but that has been something that has been posited out there. Um, Again, as I alluded to, and as you can read in the resolution, again, I wish I could. I don't know if we can make that any bigger. I don't know if that helps or not. Um, if anybody can read that. Yeah. How do I make that?
But this is a resolution of the
This is
Charter Revision Commission. It's their resolution.
no, this is something for us to consider. For
Oh,
us, for our purposes. So,
oh.
as I said, the charter has deemed it important to consider several changes to the election process in order to increase and improve voter turnout. The commission is looking into the impact on voter turnout should the city switch to open primaries. We have closed primaries now, as I said before. Um, the city has them, the state has them. We have 1 million unaffiliated voters. Past charter commissions have considered this and various ways to do it, including, as I alluded to, a top two system where the top two vote getters in the primary run for mayor in the general. That proposal, as noted, was rejected in 2003 by the voters. Um, Other permutations include a top four candidate system where the top four obviously would compete against each other in the general. Systems that allow any unaffiliated voter to vote in any party's primary, um, allowing any voter, regardless of their party affiliation, to vote in a party's primary, restricting affiliated voters to only vote in the primary of the party they are affiliated with, which we have now, or allowing political parties to decide how to allow unaffiliated voters to vote in its primary. And considering if a candidate can include their party affiliation on the ballot or not. As noted in the resolution, the impact on this has been mixed. Is noted the NAACP was against open primaries in 2010 when it was last considered. As I noted, since the last charter revision, we've implemented ranked choice voting, and there's no evidence. And there's no evidence regarding ranked choice voting in open primaries. No one's been doing it, although Seattle looks like Seattle will be doing it in 2027, having ranked choice voting in open primaries. Anyway, the resolution was one to take no position. It's not one. So it's not either for or against. It's more of let's wait and see if we get more data. I was hoping to have a little more data for us tonight with respect to today's results in the city. Obviously, we don't have to wait for the result with respect to the mayor's race. We've already had the second highest vote getter concede, as opposed to last time when it went several rounds. So I don't know if there's any more I could really add. Oh, and I didn't see Catherine Freed, our guest, has arrived and is with us. So, Kevin, if you could, sorry, I was so busy looking down and reading off the script, so forgive me. Our guest is here, Catherine Freed. She is for those who don't know her, she is a former member of the city council from 1992 to 2001 and a former justice of the New York State Supreme Court from 2012 to 2021. Before that on the civil court, and before that on the criminal court. And with all that, Catherine knows her way around election law as well, obviously having run for office and won. So with all that, I will turn it over to her to add onto whatever I've passed along with respect to the resolution. So Kevin or Catherine, can you unmute? I don't know if she can click on that or.
Finally.
There we go.
I seem to be having all kinds of problems with my computer today. So, well, you went over a lot of the resolution.
I did.
Okay, okay. So just, although I didn't hear the very beginning, but all this arises because of Mayor Adams' New York City Charter Revision Commission. And there was actually also a charter revision that the city council had suggested. In fact, theirs was first, and theirs was to essentially put more power into the city council. The mayor submitted his own suggestions for the charter revision, which by law takes precedence over the city council's and bumps it. But then there was a lawsuit, and now there's a bill that's been passed by both houses of the state legislature, and they're waiting for the governor to sign it. So we're not quite sure what was to have on the ballot in November. But certainly the mayor's charter commission will be on it. There may be the city council committee. So one of the things, and I know Ed went over a lot of this, one of the things that they looked at were different ways that they thought could have encourage greater voter participation. And two of the things that they specifically looked at were the open primaries that we're going to be talking about. And then they also looked at switching the city to even year elections. But is Michelle asking a question?
She is. We can unmute her when you're done. You can go on and you can finish what you were going to say. And then when you're done, we'll open it up for questions, first to the public and then to members of the board.
Okay. So, all right. So the ones we're looking at is the open primaries. This is a resolution I put together. I'm on Community Board 3, and we've also suggested this, and there's been a lot of back and forth. And I assume everyone knows, maybe I shouldn't assume, that right now New York has closed primaries. which means to vote in a party's primary, you have to be registered in that party. And there have been various schemes that have come up, and various states and various cities have tried different schemes where they do allow open primaries. Now, understand there are a number of permutations of open primaries. There's the anyone can vote in anybody's primary. There's the only unaffiliated voters can vote in any primary. There's oh, come on, really? There's the
That's okay. I
let's
think
see.
I went through some of those in the resolution.
Oh, okay, sorry.
No, that's okay.
All right. So anyway, I did read, obviously I've read through the proposals a few times, and I put most of them in the whereases. And I think if you've looked at them, you can see there. One of the things that this charter commission doesn't do is really come forward with a specific proposal. It says there are all these other possible proposals, and we're looking at it. And actually, that was one of our big problems with the Charter Commission, the Mayor's Charter Commission in general, because it made a lot of suggestions and said there's X, Y, and Z, but it rarely was specific in what it was proposing. So the things that should probably point out is, other than the various types of open primaries, is since the reason given for the open primary is to increase voter turnout, it's not at all clear that that's what this will do. I think I put it in my resolution that the state of California has had an open primary with the top two names going to the general election. They've had that for 14 years, and they actually haven't increased voter turnout. They have increased voting from unaffiliated voters, but the overall level hasn't changed. And we also have the additional problem of the fact that we now have ranked choice voting, which has to be slotted in with the open primary. So it adds a different wrinkle to it. And there's a real question as to what the impact of the different primaries will be on different voting blocks. And in fact, I think I put in here that the NAACP is opposed to open primaries because they feel that it actually diminishes the impact of, well, people of color. And in fact, there were a number of commission hearings already this year, one in May, and they testified again this May to the fact that they believe they're opposed to it, and they believe that it would, instead of helping disenfranchised voters, it would make it more difficult.
Catherine, can you speak real quickly about the jungle primary, as they refer to it in California, as you alluded to, with the top two vote getters in the primary, how
Right.
usually ends up being in the general, usually two Democrats in that state. Do you know if that helps or hurts the Republican Party out there?
Well, there's also one of the things that I don't know is some of the things that are allowed is that if you have a totally open primary, they sometimes require, usually they don't allow people to designate the party or say what their party affiliation was. You can, but in most cases they don't, or they allow them to pick a different party name completely as though it were an independent party. So the jungle primaries essentially throws it open, and after the primaries, whoever gets the top two voters go to the general election. A number of the states, and I think Seattle was one of the ones that uses a top four, where the top four vote getters have a runoff essentially in the general primary. So the state can basically pick however they want to do it. For instance, you can say that people who are members of a party have to vote in that party's primary, but if you're unaffiliated, you can vote in any party primary. And some of the problems with this, and it's interesting because some of the changes that you can make and some of the block voting and the kind of twisting around and parties forming or on-forming and supporting each other also happened this year, for instance, in our ranked choice voting, because you saw a lot of people cross-endorsing. So the end result is it kind of twists the end result. When you really thought about ranked choice voting in the same way with open primaries, you don't realize that there are a lot of ways to get around this and a lot of ways to align so that you can have a greater impact. And that actually may be one of the reasons that the NAACP is opposed to it.
Interesting.
So where would you like me to go for that? I mean, again, this resolution, and obviously you can either accept it, reject it,
Amend, whatever.
whatever. But we did taking no position at this time, basically because there are too many possibilities and they don't really tell us which one it would be. So we could potentially vote for open primaries, but we have no idea what exactly it'll look like. So our feeling was encourage the Charter Commission to continue looking at ways of voting that might encourage more voter turnout, but we didn't want to take a position because it just wasn't clear.
I think the board, I think we just recently passed, Sherry, correct me if I'm wrong, we just passed it against the even year. I think we came out against that. I mean, personally, I'm against both of them, but it just seemed because the even year is another. That's a whole nother thing.
Oh, please. The idea that you could have 50 or 60 different positions on a ballot and how complicated that is. I mean, as it is, people are still screwing up the ranked choice voting. Can you imagine if you had ranked choice voting, if you had, you have some offices have public financing, some don't. Some are just a 50%, whoever, winner take all. And all of them are in the same ballot in a row. And there's always voter drop off anyway. So if you have 50 of these things, most people aren't going to get to the bottom of it. And it's a real question as to, I mean, living in the city, we have 8.5 million people at least, and we're bigger than most states and some countries. So anyway, any questions, Michelle?
I think Michelle has one.
Yeah.
Yeah, my first basic question, which you answered, and you're talking was who wrote the resolution? So you answered that question because we read the resolution, we talked about the resolution, and then I was saying, okay, but who wrote it? So now we found out you wrote it. So that was the first question.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I was co-chair of the Charter Revision Committee on Community Board 3.
Okay, so you've written this. So great.
That part out.
So this is for nothing except discussion. What's very disturbing to me is there's a whole move in an effort to fix something of which we have no evidence that it's broken. So we don't know if anything being proposed will increase voter turnout. We don't know even if it's a good idea to increase. I mean, I like increased informed voter turnout. Those people who are not interested in going to the polls, I'm not interested in putting, a harness on them and dragging them. So there are people who are not interested. For the 1 million unaffiliated, they're unaffiliated for a reason. If they wanted to vote in a primary, and our system says you have to be a member, you have to belong to the party to vote, then they would belong to the party to vote. So all of these machinations take no consideration of that people are basically doing what they want to do and what they think is good for themselves or, in keeping with what their thoughts or beliefs or feelings are. So I don't believe in banging anybody over the head. I think this ranked choice voting, I mean, the stats are not in yet, but as the observer, I think it was a fiasco. I don't know what anybody else thought, I think so.
I'll give you some numbers, Michelle, because I promised Catherine I'd give her some before our meeting. But just to your point, real quick for you, in 2021, I couldn't get them for last night. Forgive me, but last time around, Mayor Adams prevailed over Catherine Garcia with 404,513 votes versus 397,316, 50 0.4% to 49.6%. That was the total. However, what wasn't talked about were the 140,202 votes that were unrecorded. They dropped off as we went along on the ranking. So in reality, when you added it all together, Mayor Adams has got 42.9% of the total votes, which were 942,000, versus 42.2 for Catherine Garcia and 14.9% of unrecorded. To your
Right.
point, Michelle.
And also to your point, Michelle, is again the cross voting, the cross endorsing that we did this time. One of the problems with having open primaries is it really allows people. I mean, it would be particularly difficult if anyone could vote in any party's primary, because you would have all the Republicans voting
Of course,
in the
you vote for
Democratic
the least,
primary to
for
vote
the
for the
weakest
worst
candidate.
Democrat running, of
Exactly.
course. And
So
that's one of the problems you do have, even with unaffiliated voters. As you said, some of them are unaffiliated because they don't want to be in one of the parties.
exactly,
But the
exactly,
other problem is that people who are basically Democrats or basically Republicans, but remain unaffiliated, because why not if they're open primaries? And they can actually throw the primary off from the party they
exactly,
dislike the most
exactly.
or they least agree with, and you end up with the worst candidate running.
Exactly. So my point is, going back to your resolution, I don't think it reflects our position
No,
to
I have
say
no
that. No,
problem
no,
if you
no,
want to
no.
say you
Wait a
don't
minute.
like it.
No, no, no. It's not that I don't like it. I'm saying
support it.
that taking no position doesn't reflect our position necessarily.
Well, I
In
think
That's your,
Well, it was more
that's-
for CB3, remember, and
No, I
that's
CB3.
know.
your,
So
that's
what
your
I'm-
community board.
But
It's
this-
not necessarily CB8. She's saying she did this
No,
for
I know
her
what you
community.
So
Yeah,
I am
yeah, thank you.
offering a point of view, which I also do not think that CB8 will necessarily agree with. And your resolution of taking no position is great. Maybe they will love it. All
They
I'm
didn't.
saying is my
No.
position, which probably will not be in a resolution tonight, my position is I like, maybe being a preservationist makes me a person who doesn't like arbitrary change. So to me, the old system was just fine.
Right.
Everybody votes in their own primary. You get two candidates and then you have a general election.
Right.
I'm not looking for this jazzy stuff, especially they have no evidence for proposing it. Any of it.
Michelle,
And
I
that to
just
me
want,
is disturbing.
no,
right. No, I just wanted to make it clear because I thought Ed did, but this is not the resolution you have to adopt. You
I
can
get
do
it.
whatever you want to with it and just say you hate it, that
No,
you're
no, I
totally
get it.
opposed to
Oh, no,
open
no.
primaries.
I
Well, to
get
be
it.
That's
clear,
up
I
to
just
you.
originally we didn't know where it came from. That was
no. Well, to be clear, Sherry and I didn't have a chance to chat. But we didn't have a chance to chat about this before the meeting. So the one reason I offered it up was that it took no position. So that there would
right.
not be, so it was absolutely benign either way.
Okay, but to
To a
me,
point, but if I can just, and one point that to make is why no position is to what Catherine alluded to. And I've said a couple of times in our meetings and at the full board meeting, which is I still believe this, that until we really know what it is that we're going to be talking about, I, for one, I'd like to talk about them to see that we can maybe shape how it ends up. But before we take a position, we need to know exactly what it is. So
What they're
that's why I
proposing.
threw it out there. But I mean,
Right.
we can amend it. I mean, I'm all whatever you want to do, Michelle. I
Why
mean,
don't we let Valerie?
let me just finalize my comments so that Valerie.
Yeah, Valerie
speak.
does have her hand
Let
up.
me.
Yeah,
She
let's let
does.
Valerie in.
Let me, because you're misunderstanding. I think what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, I hope we come up with a resolution that takes a stand in opposition to what they are proposing, not to take no position. And I say that because taking no position, it will not, in my opinion, be interpreted the way you think it's going to be interpreted or hope it's going to be interpreted. Taking no position means you haven't made up your mind yet. I have made up my mind. Maybe nobody else has. I've made
Okay.
up my mind. I don't like what they're proposing on a whole lot of levels.
Well, let's
So
let that.
that's my point tonight.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
I want a position in opposition. All right, go ahead, Valerie.
Thank you,
I'm done.
Valerie. All right. Thanks, Michelle.
For the moment.
Okay.
Well,
Val.
first of all,
Val.
hold on, now I'm stuck. Hi. First of all, I just want to welcome Catherine to CB8. We know her so well from other activities, but it's nice to see her here. Frankly, I'm a little confused. I'm confused about what the Charter Commission is actually advocating for and what. Do you want to answer that question first, Catherine?
Yeah, well, there were a whole bunch of things they were advocating for. The basic things they were advocating for dealt with the ULURP procedure, and a lot of it land use. And quite frankly, what it came down to is the mayor was trying to take a lot of input away from community boards and from the city council.
Right.
And but part of what the Charter Revision Commission looked at was these, in addition to the land use, and they also looked at city council member deference. They looked at a few other things, but you know, they came up with a lot of different areas that they were making recommendations. But Ed had told me he just wanted to talk about the open primaries. And again, you can tell from the resolution, they didn't really say much, except that there was an implication that somehow open primaries would increase voter turnout. And there's absolutely no indication that that's correct. And again, California's been doing it for 14 years and it didn't increase voter turnout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, this last primary that just ended yesterday, which I guess is not even
hasn't
over.
ended yet.
Well, I was just going to say is not really over yet because of this ranked choice voting. I had the occasion to work on several days of early voting, campaigning for a particular candidate, but in the course of doing so, basically watching people come and vote, and in various stage of preparedness and quite frankly unpreparedness to vote, and unpreparedness to vote, meaning they didn't know who the candidates were, and for most of first of all, they didn't even know which offices were on the ballot except for maybe the mayor's race.
Right.
They had no idea which district they were even in to even know which candidates were going to be there would be considered. And then they had this ranked choice voting thing on top of it. And to absorb all that, luckily, in most places, there were lines. So they had an opportunity to actually read the palm cards that were being handed out by the candidates. And that was the most information they were going to get in order to go in and cast these ballots. To me, it was absolutely horrifying. And on so many different levels, I can't even translate or say in this minute or two how horrifying it was on so many levels. And then this is really only the second time we've seen ranked choice voting. So I think this is really where people are going to realize what the real implications are of this system. And I'm not so sure they're going to be that happy with them, because this idea of being a loser and being able then to redistribute your vote to somebody else to perhaps not even theoretically catapult somebody who wasn't in the first poll position to the front is like, it just seemed to me like if you were sure of who your candidate was and you only voted for one person, your vote is worth less then somebody who votes for a loser, and then when I say a loser, I mean somebody who's going to
Who
come out
gets
at the next
dropped off.
round,
Yeah,
but then all those votes get added to their second vote, and it's almost as if they have two votes.
right.
And it just seems very, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but this was
Mhm.
just this is my impression. And that seems, to use a phrase, very undemocratic to have this work in this way. I know that when we first put looking at ranked choice voting, I got an email from somebody and said, geez, it's not so complicated. You just rank 5 people. And I said, do you understand that it's a lot more complicated? And this whole idea of the redistribution of the vote and the cross endorsing? I mean, most people, as I said, are online not even knowing who the candidates are to start with. And then they have 5 minutes where they think they have to rank everybody. And then, I mean, I just am going to be very interested to see how these votes finally end. I mean, even in our district, District 4, no, there's people, it's basically 2 people with 26 or 25% of the vote.
3
And in
people.
my mind,
Yeah.
it's the losers, the losing candidates who, and the people who voted not, not for the top two finishers who are actually going to decide who
Well,
the representative of council District 4 is going to be.
well,
And,
Well,
and there
well,
seems to be, that seems to be crazy to me. So either we
well,
go
yeah.
back to the system we had, or if the idea behind ranked choice voting was to encourage many more people to get involved in the process, I don't know what was behind it except more confusion.
Actually, to answer your question, the idea was to get rid of the runoff. So it would save money and you would come up with a solution earlier. It's just
Well, I
they
mean,
they weren't
they didn't take into consideration the unintended consequences, which is what you
right.
get when you get the
Right.
cross endorsing. I mean,
But
I don't know why it didn't occur to
why
them.
do we need, now that we allow mail-in ballots, why do we need 10 days of early voting? We should just reduce the number of early days of voting and come up with like the top 2 finishers and then have people come back. I mean, if you want to do it
Well, that's what we used to do.
that's what that's the thing. I mean, to Michelle's point earlier, what you're trying to say, Michelle, is they have have a solution in search of a problem.
right.
And to your point, Valerie, what you were making, I was just going to interject real quick, is that another selling point of this ranked choice voting, to your point of they weren't happy that if you had a cast of 5, that someone might win with 38% of the vote. And everybody goes, well, that's not very nice because 62% of us don't like this person. So to your point, they said, if we do ranked choice voting, then they'll have to work together and then it'll all be over 50% and we'll all like that person. But what we saw this time, and Catherine, make a comment if you'd like, what I saw also was it wasn't kumbaya so much that drove the coalescence as
Right. It
much
was
as
F you.
yes,
Right.
thank you. Exactly. It was sort of this opposite effect of what the strategy was, right? And you'd hear the consultants and again, to the unintended consequences, and not it didn't pan out that way per se, how people would behave. Catherine, I don't
On
know.
the other hand, I think, what was it? We had figured out that only that Dami did not get 50% of the vote.
Right.
He
Well,
got
but I mean, if you
less.
stop the vote today, right? If you did it the different way, as of last night, the person who's the leader in the primary, almost 57% of the people who voted
Didn't want him.
didn't vote for him.
But
So, I mean, just like wrap your head around
Well, you
that.
mean they
Well,
didn't
that's-
vote for him as their
Right,
first
but I'm just
choice.
saying, if you just strictly went by that,
well, if
and
you went by the numbers I gave for the 2021 election, Eric Adams, 57% of the people didn't vote for him either in
exactly,
2021.
exactly. So, I mean, to Michelle's
Well,
point,
to Michelle's point.
what are we really doing here? I mean, this is not really making it more democratic in the small d using the small d
Right.
democratic. I
A
just
lot of us don't like ranked choice voting.
Right, but
well,
I
I
think
think
we're not. That's not up
nobody
on our.
proposed it as a pilot program though. Like we
No,
didn't
it
say
doesn't.
like ranked choice voting for 4 election cycles and then go back, which
No,
is
we
probably what
passed it.
we should have done. to say, you know, however it's supposed to work out. But I think it's very interesting that your point about California with it's basically called like a jungle primary, right? It's just a
Yes, they
jungle.
throw it open and then the top
Well,
two.
they do that in Alaska too, isn't that how, you
I
know,
think it's a little,
Palin
it's
was
like,
in like a
I
similar.
think it's something like that.
Yeah, it's
Well,
on my
I mean,
Is it
resolution.
four or is it
you know,
four-way in Alaska?
voter apathy is voter apathy. I like I said, I was at a polling place yesterday for 6 hours. 90% of the people who walked by didn't even want to vote. And I just want to make this last comment, and I'm sorry, but this idea of early voting, it may may work well for young people who never knew a different way, but I will tell you that older voters completely confused about, like, 10 people walked by and I was like, come on, you got to vote. And they were like, is today the last day? Like, there was like, nobody knew what election day really was anymore. And the fact that we moved the primary to June when it used to be in September, I also think that's an issue that needs to be looked at as well.
That was
Before-
another thing for more voter turnout to have it.
Well, that was
I think-
also, by the way, for ranked choice voting, and then we'll turn it over to Michelle. That's the other selling point, Valerie, you put your finger on, is that we had the runoff in September. So the Board of Elections was always annoyed if you had a close election with the recounts, and then it would start running into printing the ballot. You run out
They
of
can
time.
never catch
You know,
up.
You'll never be able to print the ballot in time. So they said, we can't have this. We need to do something so we can decide right then. And that's how ranked choice voting came
honestly, with the way the climate is going, I think it's going to be more and more likely that we're going to have weather like we had yesterday in these primaries, and people should really think about that, because I'm not sure that's a great way to have an election either.
Well, there's another problem. Before, when you had the primaries in September, you did have the general very quickly, so it was very much on your mind. Now, we've had the primary. It's another, what, 5 months until we actually get around to the actual voting. I mean, it's like the election never ends.
All right.
But I do think that, it's a horse and water kind of thing. You can do everything you want to try and get people to come in and vote, but you can't make them vote, and you can't make them think about it ahead of time. All you can do is do the public service announcements and try it everywhere, which way to get them, to let them know what's going on. But I was talking to Ed earlier. I said, yeah, and people, they want to do their candidates, and they rank them all in the first line, not realizing it should be going down, and they just invalidated their entire ballot.
Yeah, I wonder how many ballots yesterday were canceled out or through the early voting by people writing across the, I wonder how many of those were invalid ballots.
Well, that was the complicatedness. It was one of the objections to having ranked choice voting.
I mean, I'll just indulge me one more second. There was actually a fight on the line outside the Metropolitan Museum of Art between two men, one guy with his wife and a baby in a carriage, who came completely unprepared to vote. He was in Council District 4, and once all the candidates for District 4 realized that this guy was capable of being swayed, everybody went for him, like, to try to get him to vote. And the guy behind him said, I think you should get off this line. You're completely unprepared to vote, and you should come here prepared to vote, and you're wasting everybody's time, and it's ridiculous. And they started having a fight.
Welcome to New York.
I just wanted to, I mean, like,
Lord,
it was crazy, just
Wow.
crazy. So on that note.
All right, Michelle, any good stories from out in the field? My son saw someone get water poured on them. He was out canvassing. I won't say for what candidate. He was on the west side, I think it was, and somebody poured water on somebody out of.
All
a
I can
argue
say
that they
is
didn't get
I was
excited
in
about the
London
election.
this whole
Right.
past week, London and Cardiff, Wales, and following 75 texts that were coming in every 30 seconds on this fiasco. But the whole point of this is this. Now, unfortunately, ranked choice voting is in the charter. So now there's nothing we can do about this now. unless we elect people who are willing to advocate to undo it in the next charter thing, which frankly, this is very quick. We only did the last charter a couple of years ago. I didn't expect these two
Yeah, this
charters
is only the
now.
second time we've used it.
Yeah, so that's one thing. But having said that, I think the sentiment I'm getting, and there are many people, we've got 12 of us, only a couple of us have been speaking, but from the sentiment of those of us who spoke, I would like to have a resolution incorporating Catherine's telling what's being proposed, blah, 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 and then additional whereases saying why there's been no evidence for this and why there's been
That's
a
in there.
fiasco. And yeah,
That is
and
in there.
but whatever isn't, and then make the point that Community Board 8 would like to see two candidates and a vote. Everybody voting in the primary of the party of their choice. No change for independents, no change for unaffiliates, whatever the
So a
law is
closed
now,
primary.
it is.
You mean a closed primary like we have now?
Yeah, closed
Yeah.
primary, whatever the story is, that we would like to see it maintained. And at the end of the day, we'd like to see candidates in the traditional categories. So a Democrat, a Republican, an independent, whatever. But that's the resolution I would like to see. This is a fiasco. Somebody comes up with an idea and, oh, let's try that. And I think this is going to increase voting. It's not really the responsibility of government to make everything so easy and to eliminate any possibility of any unique thought or concern of any one person. It's ridiculous. It's demeaning. It's like the bigotry of low expectations. You're assuming that people can't show up where they want to show up. They show up for a movie they want to see. They show up for theater. They show up for travel. They show up for community events. They have calendars. They keep rank. They know what they want to do. And you know what? If they don't want to vote, they don't want to vote.
I think, Michelle, if I may, there's a line that's used around political consultants. Their line is, "There's no interest like self-interest."
Exactly. So if they wanted to show up for a particular reason, they would show up. You don't have to feed them like pablum. You just don't. Anyway, that's the resolution I would like to see to come out of this committee tonight.
So that I'm clear, then the resolution that we have,
Well, to leave the whereases in there that explains the circumstance, but add some of our own whereases saying that there's additionally, I don't have the resolution in front of me, so I'm not quoting it word for word.
Sure.
But if there are things in there that don't include that there's no evidence for this, that, or the other thing, that there is a possibility for confusion, that it's just watering down, that people are cross what?
All you have to do is say, instead of you take no position, that you're opposed to it. There is a be it further resolved.
No, more than that. No, excuse me,
Hang
Catherine.
on.
No,
No,
you're opposed to all four?
More than that, I want to say that I want to make it a positive resolution. I want to say that we are in favor of the retraction of ranked choice voting and in going back to elections with traditional candidates and traditional, however you want that wording to be. But I want it to be a resolution basically to say, get rid of all this. I mean, this is, especially
Michelle,
since there's no
the thing
evidence
is
for anything. That's what kills me. There's no evidence for anything. And somebody comes up with this idea, then somebody comes up. They have no reason for the change. We have no evidence that it was broken.
One of the things that is in this resolution says that all proposals must be specifically assessed for their impact on minority and marginalized communities to determine that they will comply with the New York Voting Rights Act and to determine if they need pre-clearance from the New York Attorney General's office.
I think that's a given because it's the law, and I don't think it needs to be in the resolution. I don't think we have to, if it's the law, then that's what has to be complied with. And we shouldn't want anything that will
Well,
impinge on anybody's rights. It doesn't have to clarify which communities. That's the law. That's the law. I don't think we need it in the resolution.
I think that just for historical purposes, one thing that people in New York State frequently overlook, as I've done voter protection across in this country and in several states, is that when they passed the Voting Rights Act in the 60s, they don't like to talk about it north of the Mason-Dixon line, but we were singled out along
Who's
Hey,
we? New
I
York?
brought, hang on.
for pre-clearance
Ed,
for that.
I-
Yeah.
Who's we? New York? I didn't
Hey.
get that.
Please,
Ed.
like Catherine.
Yeah, sorry. I just want to point out that the case that determined that Manhattan was under the Voting Rights Act was my case.
Thank you. So please, give us the quick
So
historical.
we're in it, is what I'm saying. So we're included in it. It's
Well,
part
It
of
doesn't
the
matter.
law.
There is no U.S. Voting Rights Act anymore. It's been
Right.
gutted
Now it's-
completely,
now
but there is a New York State Voting Rights Act.
Okay,
Well, the point is-
my point is, if that's the law, then that's what has to be done, and we don't need it in the resolution.
Well,
I mean,
whatever-
just like you
whatever-
don't, whenever you write a resolution on anything, you don't say that providing
well,
it complies with the no murder act or no thievery. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we have laws, so we can presume that it has to comply with the law.
Well, I mean, we can take a vote on it, Michelle. We have how many people from the board with us? We have Sherry, myself. You're
You
here.
may just
Valerie's
want to
here.
make, you may just remind them that they should consider it when they come up with these laws. Because you were saying, Michelle, who comes up with these laws and what do they look at? Well, this is one way to say, maybe you should consider the impact to here. That's all. You do
But
what
if
you
you
want to.
I
I'm
mean,
not
what
a
we
vote.
can't do. I mean, I don't know. What do you think, Sherry? Do you want? I mean, do you want to? Do you think we just take it for a vote, or what do you want to do? Just whatever. It's fine.
Well, your point is that we should wait until they come out and tell us what they're proposing. I mean, it's like we're shooting blank
Yeah.
bullets all over the place.
Well,
I
that's
mean,
true, unless you tell, like, first of all, does Catherine know about the resolutions that we have passed?
Yeah, I
well,
think.
the ones that are relevant is that.
No,
we-
I wondered if Catherine had them. Do you
No,
have
no, I
them?
was just
Well,
gonna
I
tell
know
her
you can't. Yeah.
the one particularly relevant to this point is that we voted against changing
Even your
to
elections.
yeah, so that's the other ones.
Right.
We did a full set of resolutions on ULURP, on everything,
We did that.
which are totally going to be ignored, we know.
Right.
So I mean, I'm at the point, I mean, I don't know what the timing is. We don't have a board
July
meeting.
7th, I think. If you're going to make it have an impact, I think that's the last
I-
day, right about
I
July
would
7th,
just
about the
I
last day to put
frankly
something in.
this is a very informative and conversation. I would just leave it, and when we see, we don't even know if it's
Yeah,
going to
but
be
Sherry,
the amendment.
that's gonna come up like in August, like it always does, or whenever.
No, it's
nobody's around.
Michelle, the last date to get any comment in for the Charter Revision Committee is the first week in July.
Okay, but we're not gonna have another, I mean, that's next week. So what I'm saying,
We
I don't
don't
see
have
any
after.
harm. I'm just saying, I don't see any harm in us having a resolution tonight about what we want to see. And
do
we
what-
want to see,
and do what with it?
and send it to them, that community
can't.
board. What do
You
you mean?
can't send it
That's
without
commentary.
Valerie got it. You can't send it without the board approval. What do you?
Yeah.
I'm saying that it goes to the board, and Valerie's on the call. I don't know if she's still here.
She got off.
Gotta leave. Okay, well, two
But we
things.
won't have full
If
board.
we
though,
have a
until
deadline,
later.
if we have a deadline and we don't have a full board, it'll be up to the chair's discretion discretion as to whether or not to send it in as a committee resolution. We've done that before. When we have to have submissions and we don't have a full board, we send it in as a vote of the committee. Valerie can do that or not.
You weren't at the full board meeting.
No, I was
This
in
was
England.
such, you would have thought with apple pie that the people would have approved it. This was such an antagonistic meeting. I would not do that.
Well, this
We
is one reason,
we
Sherry,
argued for like 2 hours last night over this at board 3. And
Yeah, I
everybody
mean-
was at each other's throat.
Where's
that's why-
board, Catherine, where's board 3? I'm just curious. Where's
Oh,
board-
Lower East Side.
Lower East Side. But you know,
okay.
Catherine, it's interesting because the taking no position is fine, except that now what?
well, what we
Yeah,
can
they
do,
want-
Michelle,
Well, Michelle,
always-
it'll come back.
yeah, it will come.
Don't
First of all, a
worry.
couple of
You're
things.
going to have another shot at this. We've had a charter revision commission, I think almost at least every 4 years. And I think the last one we had was just in 2024.
It is, but it used to be
And
every
they don't
10
have time
years.
to pass any of this, so it'll
But
be
wasn't
back.
it every 10 years originally? But the
No,
By the way,
I don't
Michelle,
know.
it was
what you
10
can do-
years.
But what you can do, Michelle, if I may, is that, and I realize this with respect to advocacy, and Catherine, please correct me if I'm wrong here on the law, but is that we have to be very careful with respect to advocacy as members of the community board in terms of in these kinds of issues around the Charter Commission.
That's if
So
you're
what I'm
imparting.
I know, but what I would posit is that to Catherine's point and to what Sherry's alluded to, and I have as well, is this will come back to us. I know we'd like to have a comment now. We could put it in the resolution tonight to encourage people to testify and get their voices out. Again, as to last night's meeting that they had up at the City Museum, you can still submit written testimony as of tomorrow. My point.
Yeah, there's something at the Schomburg Center, I think, on the 7th.
Right. What I was going to say is, though, when this comes back to us, which it will, because the city council has to sign off on it before it goes to the ballot. And so at that point, as Sherry's nodding, we'll know exactly, to what the point you always talk about, is what is on that ballot. And then in October, right before the election, we could then make a point of, wow, Community Board 8 comes out on this position, to your point, one way or the other on this specific proposal. I just throw that out there for your consideration.
Look,
No, you
I'll leave it
can't.
to-
We can't advocate. We're not allowed to
No,
advocate.
but we can take a,
Right.
we can
No,
say.
you're not allowed to
disagree.
advocate to
of-
the
This
public. You're
resolution
not
does
allowed to
point out
One
all
at
the
a time, one
negatives.
at a time.
Sorry. I
Catherine,
just
go
want to
ahead.
point out that all the negatives are laid out in the resolution.
Yes,
Anyway,
I
so
saw
you're putting it right out there in the resolution, no matter what
when
your
you
vote
say
is.
you're not allowed, let me just clarify. When you say you're not allowed to advocate,
Right.
what that meant, like last Charter Commission, we had public information forums.
Yeah, we
And
can,
at these forums, we had a balanced argument on both sides.
right,
The community board did not take a position.
right,
It was
right,
Information giving to the public.
right.
However, when the community board makes a resolution, they are taking a side. That's what a resolution means. You're for it or you're against it.
Right.
You're not advocating for others, like for the public, to join your resolution. It's a resolution about the for or against from the board. So we're perfectly within our rights talking about that. Now let me ask you,
I don't
Catherine,
believe,
are both the
I don't
mayor's
believe
commission
that's true.
yes, a resolution always represents the point of the board. What is a resolution if not the point of
I
the board?
know that we cannot do a I'm not
What are you-
arguing that. I'm just
What are you
saying,
saying?
when
You froze, Sherry.
the final decision, final report comes out, we cannot pass a resolution supporting a position or not. How can we?
One of the-
That's
by the way, one of the problems-
advocating.
Let me just clarify one thing, Catherine. Is this whole voting thing in both the mayor's and the city council's charters?
I haven't seen the city council. I looked at the one that was the mayor's. I'm
Oh,
not,
we have the city council one. I wonder if it's in both. Ed, didn't we have both?
Yeah, I have them
Yeah,
both in
we
the
have a
chat. They're in the
preliminary
chat.
report, yeah.
They're in the chat.
yeah.
I'm
I
looking.
mean, part of the problem with this is they haven't, as this points out, they haven't told you what you're gonna, they haven't even
Right,
told you
and that's
exactly
what
what you're
my
voting on.
recommendation is that we
Yeah.
wait.
I mean, how can you make a
Right.
if you don't know what
It's
you're
up to
voting
the
on? How can you
co-chairs.
even?
I'm not going to argue the point. It's up to you. If you're the co-chairs, if that's the way you want to go, that's fine. In that case, no, we won't have any resolution tonight, Catherine's or any others. If you want to go that route, that's fine. But I'm just saying that I would like that point of view represented in our discussions
And I guess what we're
as
trying
you
to say,
go
Michelle,
forward.
is what we're trying to say, I guess, is that this will, at some point after Labor Day, you will actually have something you can hold on to. What we're saying right now is there's nothing to hold on to. It's
Fine.
air. So when we get back after Labor Day, there's going to be something we can hold on to. And with respect to the advocacy argument, no one is talking about advocating anything. But the fact that the community board cannot take a position with respect to something that is a public policy issue, I would take strong opposition to that in general. We take positions for
All
and
the
against
time.
things, all the time.
All
And
the
this is no
time.
different. So no one is
That's what a
suggesting,
resolution is.
if
It's
I
a
may,
position.
thank you, if I may. So the point is, we're not going out and saying, let's have a bunch of community meetings, okay,
Right.
as a community board.
Right.
So anyway, as I
When's
said,
your
I
full
agree with
board
you.
meet? Next full board meeting?
It won't be till after the 7th of July.
Mid-July, but it's after.
July. You know,
It's the
Jasmina,
third,
you've been
usually the third
suffering through
Wednesday.
this. Excuse me, there's a member of the public who has been suffering through our whole meeting. Do you have anything you want to say?
Anybody?
Yes. Kevin, unmute her, please. Poor thing is just sitting there.
Oh,
and
I
we're
didn't
just
see any
going,
hands
Zoning.
up.
Oh,
She
no, no,
suffered through zoning last night.
yeah, and last
Glutton.
night,
She's a
what
glutton.
is
She's a
this?
glutton. God bless her.
it's slightly off topic, but I've thought of a clever segue into what I really want to say. And I emailed Ed about this. I don't know if it's appropriate to do it this way,
Go right
but
ahead.
as a citizen, I'm not convinced that any level of government is actually interested in hearing what I have to say.
Oh, that's true. That's
Right.
right.
So
Not exactly. They still have
from
to
that,
get, they
from
still
Maybe
that
need to
indictment.
vote.
standpoint, I'm very distrustful of any of these changes because to me, my reaction is, okay, who is this making it easier to manipulate my
Right.
support? And related to that, it seems to be this push and pull, like, oh, we're trying to get more voters to show up and voice their opinion. At the same time, they're trying to reduce city council members' input and a community
Mhm.
board's input. So that doesn't quite jive. And now here's my segue. Community boards. Do community boards, you seem to be the exception. Are community boards really interested in my opinion or representing me? And
Sure.
I have
They're
been
supposed to be.
a part of a group who really is starting to feel like we're not represented by community boards, and that's citywide. And we're a bit taken aback by the appointment of some lobbyists. And I understand that it's very difficult to prove conflict of interest. You cannot FOIA nonprofits, but and I don't want to name names, but I do want to say that there are certain nonprofits whose mission it is to drown out the voice of residents. And specifically stated online, their mission states residents in the wealthiest neighborhoods have abused zoning laws to prevent new construction, keeping their neighborhoods exclusive and property values high.
Gee, I wonder who that
That's
was.
such a grotesque character, right? Okay, and
Right.
so a member of this nonprofit can be appointed to our community board.
And probably
they-
has been.
They have been, and they voting freely on zoning issues, and this is really disturbing. So my suggestion was, and I don't know anything about how the charter works, but can there be a charter revision regarding
This is, oh, yeah.
not allowing lobbyists to sit on community boards?
Please, please. Can I just tell you that it's not just board aid, it's every
Right.
board, particularly Manhattan, because I don't mean to sound political, but I would say we recently, very recently, or currently have a borough president who went out of his way to put on members of of several specific groups, and every single community board in Manhattan is having a fight. And we can't, in Board 3, we have almost ground to a halt. And I mean, I told the chair of the board and the district manager when they asked me to co-chair this committee, I said, you do understand I'm a lightning rod. Because when I get up to speak, it's a given that a certain group will vote against anything I say. If I say it's Tuesday and it's Tuesday, they'll vote against it.
Oh, yeah, our community board has two divisions, the pro-development and the anti-development. We know.
How about the pro car?
And like
the
as
How
Mina
about
said,
that on the mayor's application to apply for the community board?
I think that's a
the
borough
question that
that's a borough president's
the borough,
application.
I'm sorry, did I say, what did I say? I meant the borough
You said
president.
mayor.
His application to, the community board application says, do you own a car? Now, if
Yeah,
you check
well, we
that
know what
box,
that was
what do you
about.
think? Is that a plus or a minus in the eyes of the borough president? What do you think? And what kind of a question is that for an applicant to be on the community board? Why is it relevant to know if that applicant has a car? I'm on the board since 2006, and I've had to apply every 2 years. I never remember such a question until recently.
It's been on there.
Did your board address the question of term limits for community board members?
Yes, in our resolution, we
against it.
said it should be eliminated
We were
because
against
we're losing half of the board next year.
Oh, and the worst part is if you lose the old timers, it's the
There's
new
no
crop of
institutional
people have
memory.
been appointed in especially the last 4 years.
Right. Well,
I get muted.
no.
No, you're
Okay.
on.
No, I was going to
Oh,
say though, Kevin, if you
it's-
could unmute Gail, because I know she's
I
had her
want
hand
us to let
up.
Gail talk. Gail, you're next. That's a very nice picture of you, Gail.
Yeah.
Go
Thank you
ahead.
very much.
Go ahead, Gail.
A few years ago. How many committee members do you guys have for the Charter Commission?
It varies.
But we probably have at least 5 or 6, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The reason I'm saying this is in response to Michelle's suggestion regarding any resolution. I agree with you and Ed. I think we should wait because we don't know what we're voting on.
Yeah,
But even if we were to say we want to move forward with a committee supported resolution.
Oh, we don't even have enough
We don't
members.
have a quorum, so I
Yeah.
think that is really out the window as a possibility. But I do believe that we should just wait and
Yeah.
see what it is that we're voting on. And I think that there are major concerns by people in the city who are independents or who are Republicans who want to have their voice heard. But unless you then say, I'm now going to become a Democrat in order to vote in the primary. So and I don't agree that everyone who doesn't vote in the primary doesn't vote because they don't want to. There are circumstances. It's one thing if you are registered with a specific party, but I'm still a little conflicted. I know that maybe only 1 out of 8 of our residents are non-democratic voters. But how do you make sure that you get the independents and the Republicans to weigh in as well, rather than just throwing their hands up in the air and saying, I have no voice because it's a Democratic city. So what am I going to do unless I change my party affiliation? I mean, I think
Although I
that's
would point
something
out that there have been a number of Republican mayors.
Well,
We
that,
have-
well, that was what I would, Gail, to your point. That's why I was asking Catherine about it on the jungle primary, because when you do that, the unintended consequence could be in a state or city that's dominated by one party, red or blue. You
Right.
end up with the top 2 are from the same party, and so whether it's
Right.
be against it if it was Republican. Either way, I
Right.
don't think it's good.
I just want to
that's
get
just a
that type
personal
of
opinion.
input. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, because I think it's awfully important, and I do agree with Michelle. 4 years ago with the Charter Commission, there were hearings and public meetings, and whether you agreed or disagreed with what the commission came out with, at least one's voice was heard. Where this time it's so fast that suddenly people will be voting in
Yeah.
November, and if it's as amorphous as it is right now, you won't even know what you're voting for. And maybe the whole key would be to tell people to vote no, because it's not specific if things don't get clarified prior to the election.
Yeah, and remember, a lot of the reason this is so short is because you had the council and the mayor fighting over
Right,
who got precedence and who was pushing for, it was a power struggle.
Yeah.
exactly. As is the case.
Okay, so the consensus is that we're not doing a resolution. So, what else, Catherine, should we be talking about or Ed or?
Well, you're not doing a resolution, or you're going to point out that there are a lot of problems and you're not taking a position.
Well, I think Sherry made a very good point, when she was discussing it with Michelle, and that is, we're not as a full board. Our regular full board meeting is the third Wednesday of the month, which is going to
Yeah,
be
so they're
past
not going to be
7.
able to,
Right.
yeah.
No,
So
they won't consider it, so.
right. That's to Sherry's
Right.
point. Now, I mean, but yeah, I don't know what, I mean, other than as a PSA to say to people as part of this meeting to voice their opinion and to, and obviously to testify, or, I mean, if you have an opinion.
Well,
you
I
should-
know Alita is planning to go to the hearing and talk about that community boards and the city council should be involved, kept in the ULIP service.
Yeah.
Process. She feels very strongly about that. And she's asking, I said to her, well, speak on behalf of CB8. We have a resolution to that effect. So she spoke to Valerie, and Valerie wants to see the testimony, and then she'll be able to testify on behalf of the board.
And again, tomorrow also they're having the meeting on land use, I guess, in Brooklyn, and you can sign up. Again, it's on the link in the chat, and you can watch it. And I don't know if you could testify like they do sometimes by Zoom or not. I don't know if that's available.
Okay.
Yeah, and as I said, I think the last one is July 7th at the Schomburg Center,
Right.
which is a little closer.
Yeah. Right.
All right, Ed, do you want to wrap this up?
Yeah, I think, right, Terry? Does anybody have any old business or new business?
Old business or new business? No, other than what a mess yesterday was. Yes. Michelle? Can Kevin unmute Michelle, please?
Ed, Kevin?
So
Oh, Ed.
having said everything and considering the timing, when are you planning? I know Kevin has to look at the calendar, can't give us a date, but as co-chairs, when are you planning our next meeting?
Oh, July 15th. The
It's-
15th, right? We're on for the 15th next month?
Yeah.
What,
Yeah.
July 15th?
Yeah, day
Yeah.
after Bastille Day.
Yep.
Oh, okay. So,
Yeah.
all right,
Bastille
so
is the
that's our
14th.
meeting. So we're having a meeting.
Yes.
All right. The other thing is, can you email that resolution around and email the dates and the links to the next, Kevin has this information. In other words, rather than the chat, Kevin, can you send it via email and the dates for the links for the next hearings or meetings, the one that
Yeah.
Alita's going to? Can you put that in emails rather than the chat?
Maybe what Kevin, if you do it or if I'll do it, I can forward what I sent to Kevin, which was all that anyway. I sent them.
Okay,
the
that
links,
would be great.
email.
Send it to me in
Yeah.
an email. Okay. All right.
When you say the next meeting, Michelle, you mean the next meeting of the Charter Revision Commission itself?
Yeah, no, I want to know when the next hearing, like Alita's going down to testify. I want to know what those dates are.
Like I
You-
said,
you can go to
in
the-
Manhattan, it's July 7th at the Schomburg Center. but it's online.
Is that on Zoom too, Catherine, for testimony?
I don't know about testimony. I'm
Oh,
looking.
actually, I have it here. I have it. I'm more efficient than I thought I was. I
Okay.
have it in my calendar, 5 to 8 at the Schomburg Center. Okay. But I need to get on the list to get the link. Kevin, will you send out those links?
Or you can just go to the website, go to City
Yeah.
I'll
Charter
forward-
Commission
But I mean,
revision
if you
I'll
website.
want
forward,
people,
I'll
we
forward the
can't.
link. I'll tell you what I'll do, Michelle. I'll send you the I'll
All
send you
right.
the
I
email.
mean,
I'll
we
forward
have
the-
to testify on our own behalf.
Right.
Anybody else can testify on whatever we have a resolution on, then
Right.
Valerie, but otherwise people can testify on their own behalf. So if they know
Right.
about it, that's helpful.
Yeah. If
Right.
you go on charter.nyc, it should pop
Okay.
up.
All right, I'm going to accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you. Nice
Catherine.
Thanks,
visiting.
Catherine.
Thank
Sure.
you, Catherine.
Cool. Okay.
Welcome to
See you
CBA.
soon. Good
Bye.
night,
Well, it's
everybody.
pleasant to know all the boards have the same problems.
All right, good to know.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks.